Hey there, folks, and welcome to the next Grand Prix 755 Cup mile per hour tryouts. In this tryouts, I am doing the Suzuki Jimny XC 2018 if it has the Swift motor. So here's the parts you can do to the Suzuki Jimny XC if it has the Swift motor, which, yeah, I'll just say this in advance, I did not do any engine upgrades with this. Because it really doesn't need it, considering it's in 255 horsepower with pretty good sized turbos and stuff to it at the end of the day. If anything else I did is of course the full weight reduction and the other such, because that is the requirement when it comes to cup racing stuff. Because I usually don't really mention the requirements when it comes to this, but yeah, the Suzuki Swift motor is an inline 4, and I gotta say, probably a good direction they did with this one in particular, I will say. Slapping an inline 4 into the XC is a pretty good idea. I will say, if there's anything I would say in advance, you got to be careful about I would say weight balance and brake bias when it comes to this engine swap, because this engine swap is going to make this car very bouncy in regards. But yeah, you can do a wide body, and of course you know what the engine swap is at this point. That's how do you don't, as the thing goes. But for rims, it's basically stuck with 16 inches. You can make the offset wide on the basic ones. However, if you do aftermarket rims, you could do 15 inches, wide widths, and wide offsets, and such. So pretty good in regard, and such. Let's see here. Yeah, look how wide that gets. Pretty good. And then onto the front pieces and stuff. As we can see here, we could add a off-road bar, or we could just add a big old clip to it. Probably should just stuck with the clip, to be honest, but that off-road does kind of work. It does give it that appearance I was searching for when it came to the details of this one. Because this one I went with like wastewater kind of style, like a beach style for this, like a Hot Wheels beach style to it. Yeah, it has the blue and the red rims and stuff. Yeah, I realized the more I look at it, the more I realize I made this look like a toy. But I'm gonna be honest, the Jimny does kind of look like a toy, so give it the toy look at the end of it. It definitely is a fun off-road toy, and probably like one of the most good off-roaders out there to grab, I would say. If you're an off-road person, Jeeps would be one thing, but the Jimny is definitely another one. As thing goes. But you can change the license plate. You can also take the tire off the back of the Jimny too, if you really do not want that tire. Even though my problem is when you take the tire off, then you have that big old mold, indented mold there. So you don't want to, really don't want to do that. And then you can also give it the Suzuki Jeep style, or you can give it one of the custom styles there, as you see there. Press change the brakes, which, yeah, those are some small rotor brakes. But then again, not surprised, this is the K off-roader out of the bunch. Now for the tune-ups, I basically had to adjust the height for sure, because otherwise this thing was going to be a pain in the butt to get about. Natural frequency also pretty high as well, while the anti-roll bars, so in case it tries to roll or something, because this thing feels like it wants to roll sometimes. The camber angle to be a bit more in the back, so the front, as you see there, and then the toe angle, just none. Although I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I did dirty on that one. But the ECU 100, well, the ballast 52 though, and the power restrictor almost 100. So almost wants those engine parts, but I just didn't want to go with it. But if I do another tryouts in the future though, I'll probably do just that. And of course, as the saying goes, if you want to see that transmission setting, just pause it if you have to. I just make sure to pop it up so that way you guys see it. And then the front bias, as you see here, I did most of the front balance because to offset the whole weight weight jolts that this off-roader has, because I will say the Jeep is the other one. Because yeah, the biggest problem about off-roads are not really meant to go fast. But yeah, here's the vinyl too in case you want that. But yeah, the Suzuki Jimny XC with the Swift motor is a fantastic ideal. It's just very deadly in regards to, because as you can see how spongy this car is in regards. So look how much that front dives in every time when I brake and such. It's very pushy, I'll say. So yeah, things can get out of control real fast if you ain't in control of this car. So make sure to stay in control when you're driving this at the end of the day. But the Suzuki Jimny is definitely one of the fun K cars out there. But you kind of wonder what was going to be the engine swap when it came to the Jimny, and surprisingly, instead of something as crazy as a RX-7 or a bike motor, they did something reasonable, which is add the Swift motor into the Jimny XC, which Swift motor? I think the later year one. I think it's the essentially the 2015 or 2018, which is on that one. So not the top gear one, but the one after this one. And with this motor, I gotta say, very good ideal too, considering the Jimny is also a four-wheel drive too. So having that Swift motor will give it more of an up to its prowess at the end of the day, making this technically one of the fastest cup cars to go around here. Cause yeah, you're gonna be seeing some very fast times, considering I already punched a minute 7.619. That is quick, like super duper quick. As in, I think, as I'm about to look here, I think it is the #1 spot, and it is. It is now the #1 spot when it comes to Iger Nordland. Sirocco was 108.156 in comparison, and that is still like one of the fastest grade 4 cars as of now where it stands. So the Suzuki Jimny XC is just absolute absurd, I gotta say. Like, holy crap. There is, however, I will say, a trade for this in return, which you'll see here in a bit. But yeah, for now, seeing it go around this track is so dang fun. At the end, considering look how unwieldy I got with those brakes, holy crap! And then the way I just power drift that guy. Yeah, this car is also one of the power drifters I definitely love at the end of the day. The only problem about the Jimny, of course, this one is just a bit too spongy. If they could find it to firm it just a bit more, then you have like one of the most ultimate little rally raid kind of cars about, also, for that. Something that just reminds me of the Subaru rally car at the end of the day. Because yeah, the great part when it comes to the Subarus is that they're very spongy, or somewhat spongy. So if you slam that brakes pretty good, you'll able to cause the whole back to just wheel out, and you can punch in the throttle and just give in to a power drift. And that power drift, in some cases, in regards, I kind of say when you power drift, it is a lot faster than just going in and out of the turn. In some cases, there is a case where power drifting is really good, and you'll see on some of these tight turns where power drifting is very viable in regards. It just depends on the tight U-turns that you are about to deal with at the end of the day. But here comes the fastest lap when it comes to the Suzuki Jimny Swift. Because yeah, I basically just call it the Jimny Swift because yeah, it's essentially a Jimny with a Swift motor in it. It's, like I said, one of the most craziest things you could do. It is not going to be the fastest of the other engine swaps out there in terms of K cars, but it does what you want to do around the course at the end of the day, and that is just haul butt down the straights and then turn really freaking good in some regards. But I will say sometimes that spongy can mess with you, as you see there. So there's a possibility I could definitely do a faster lap than what I was doing here, but this is technically the fastest out of the bunch I done. So yeah, it's possible. I would say if I tried a little bit harder, probably like a 107.2 or 106.9. I could definitely think of more of a range around there, but as of where it stands, because due to the unpredictability of the sponge, because the big issue about this is the sponginess of this car, it hits only a minute 07.565. Yeah, look at that thing get wild. So satisfying. It's just so satisfying. But now onto Laguna Seca, more of a balance track for this occasion here. So let's see how the Jimny, or Suzuki Jimny, goes around. Of course, at the end, I could technically just call it Jimny. Right? Gotcha. That's the thing, goes. But yeah, the Suzuki Jimny with this course in mind is technically a fun case too. It's like no matter where you take this car, it's gonna be a fun case. It's just the only problem is it's very unwieldy and a bit too spongy to me in this matter. Now here is the stats overall. What I think of the Suzuki Jimny Swift overall. But yeah, speed 8 out of 10 because yeah, this thing moves, hitting like 141 miles per hour during the Tokyo Straight, while acceleration is probably the most craziest part, hitting like 9 out of 10 to me. Hitting about 116 miles per hour during the climb back at Eiger Nordland there, as you see there. Then the turning's kind of just very spongy drift, so I would say a 6 out of 10, because it's not the craziest in terms of steering, but it's okay. It's okay what it kind of does. And then when it comes to the burning stats, as you see there on the tires it does very good for being on the turning courses. Eiger Nordland of 8 laps, being just about a third of burn, which that's pretty good and not surprising because it is a K car, reminder. So it can get away with that. What it doesn't get away though is the gas. The gas is what holds this car back in terms of the burn factor. Hitting just about 3 out of 10, only surviving about a quarter of the tank during 8 laps of Eiger Nordland, compared to most contenders that hit about at least a half. So they always got a lot more laps in, while the other one has to sit out a bit more. So that's the biggest problem when it comes to the Suzuki Jimny right there, besides the other problem that is unpredictable handling at high speeds. Like if you go over a groove of a ramp, you will feel the suspension trying to turn on you. So be careful about going over even the most simplest curves and stuff sometimes. That and spongy drifting, because it is a power drifter, it's just not a great power drifter. So yeah, you just have to deal with the unpredictability of power drifting or even controlling the vehicle in general, so be careful about that entirely. Maybe if I re-put the, it's not the negative camber, but the other thing back to more of a measure, it'll probably counteract that a bit. But as of where it stands, just be careful just going over grooves and stuff. But that's at the end of the day. Then again, as the saying goes, it's a Suzuki Jimny. It's kind of shocking to even go this fast with it at the end of the day. But yeah, it's pretty deadly for an off-road to go this fast, I will say. For the most part. And this is probably the fastest I would ever put a off-roader at, to be honest. Because like I said, off-roaders don't need to be that quick. They just need the power to get to where it needs to be at the end of the day. And I'll just say this, I think 255 horsepower is probably the perfect amount you can probably give to a Jimny to just get over anything personally and stuff. So yeah, overall, the stats I kind of think when it comes to the Suzuki Jimny is that as a sprint racer is an A+, but as a endurance racer is only a B- to me. Hitting just about A+ overall to me, because it's a very fast little machine overall. I don't think the AI is going to use it that well, though. This is a big problem. Although I don't really count the AI for the stats, but if overall there was a reality of that, yeah. That's it. But yeah, that's kind of what I think of the Suzuki Jimny XC overall. So now let's see about the best lap here. I believe this is the best lap. Yeah, I think this is the best lap. Let's see here. I will say, if I also had to throw a fun factor rating too, I think this is probably the funnest one out of the bunch when it comes to the cars I've done. There, because this how it's an unwieldy factor, but it's a very interesting unwieldy factor because there's a way to have fun with this at the end of it. Considering, I mean, look how easy it is just a power drift every now and then. But yeah, hitting a minute 31.230. I don't have to really mention much, but yeah, I beat the Scirocco there too. The Scirocco only did a minute 32, 0.069, so yeah, so the Jimny's still pretty excellent at acceleration and balance, but how about speed here, shall we? As you see it just wheel in the turn right there, because yeah, like I said, they're in high speeds. High speeds, good luck keeping your pace overall, because it's very difficult to keep your constant maneuverability when it comes to this vehicle, because like I said, it's very unwieldy and very unpredictable where it wants to be at. And then as you can see there, anytime I get to that groove section there, you'll notice I have to like turn a bit. That's because it wants to like turn in a different direction on me. It's like the suspension wants to give there all of a sudden. It's very interesting regards on that, so like I said, just be careful of ever going over stuff in general. Because it's just not in the great recipes, let's say. But yeah, as you can see here on the speed section here, it hits about 141 basically throughout most of the way here. You see, yeah, it's in 139, 140, and then 141 right here. It's like, wow, that's pretty freaking fast. See on top of it. But then again, I'm also not surprised because how much horsepower is in this little machine at the end of the day. Because you have to really think about it. It's a K body, and it's 255 horsepower. That's a lot of horsepower for a little car. I'm not gonna lie. Making this like I said, this is probably like one of the excellent choices if Suzuki ever did a very high pace, high crazy Cup series, this would be the case to do it. Also, 255 horsepower, just sports stuff. Bam, there you go. Now, if there's like only one problem about that is hopefully you can keep the cars or the vehicle itself, the off-road itself, being controlled. So sorry. Otherwise, that series would be a bit too dangerous to on top of it, which would be kind of bad. You don't need another Group B rally, so say, scenario. Although there's more to that when it comes to that. They're where they position the pedestrians and stuff. It's a mess. It's a mess when talking about Group B. Well, when I say Group B rally, I mean specifically the last of the years, basically. But yeah, as you can see, the cool part when it comes to the Jimny, anytime I see a tight U-turn like that, I can just squish in the brakes just enough to give a increased turning factor to the Jimny, where I can just shift the weight to wheel spin it around the turn, instead of having to brake, pause a bit, and then turn in, gas in. So it's like you can just squish in the brakes, gas in, turn hard, and freaking rip that vehicle around the turn at the end of it, which is very satisfactory. In the same case, like the Super Impreza, when we ever get to that, that's gonna be another fun case as well. Here we go, going around the smooth turn as the thing goes. Oh yeah, and I will mention in advance, I did do a big change to the race segment of this, because I just kind of realized like anymore it's just kind of there at the end of the day. But I'll still just do a bit of a recap for Jimny in case. I will say, as I will say here, for the race segments anymore, I'm probably just gonna record like 10 minutes or less of it anymore, because it's just not as it's like big of a waste portion of the episode at the end of the day. So I just decided, like, you know what? Because I'll just say this car is also a destroyer too. This is the reason why I put it as an A+. I almost want to put it as an S type endurance racer, but I can't say if I really want to do that or not on that matter. But as of where it stands, though, it's definitely in the high tier of. I mean, just look how crazy it is going around that turn like that. That's, oh man, satisfaction. That's definitive satisfaction to do it like that, instead of doing it like a casual just turn in, turn out. No, you squish in those brakes, reel in that motor and you just rip around that turn. That's how satisfying that is. That's how you get around that turn a lot quicker. It's very satisfying. Yeah, as we go on the straightaway here, hitting 141 once again. And going around the turn. Ooh, oh my. And go around the beloved chicane, which, yeah, I love this chicane very much. Except unless you're driving the Garage Civic, where there's a case where you get two-wheel action in the Garage Civic there. But yeah, I actually had a guy in a comment. I mentioned that two-wheel to a guy, and then I had a guy in a comment say, how the frick do you two-wheel a Garage Civic? Because back then its roll cage was not able to be adjusted, so you were just stuck with a two-wheel action with the Garage Civic because they made it so dang tight for that. But yeah, that's basically what the Suzuki Jimny can do, and it's very excellent across the board. Even on that time, it beat the Scirocco by 0.2. So yeah, even if speed's not a big thing for the Jimny, it still did the job at the end of the day. But yeah, here's all we can basically do, which you can basically do all the Sunday Cups. It could probably do this Japanese 4-wheel drive challenge, because here's the other fun thing about the Jimny too, is that it's not aerodynamic, which is technically a good thing in regards of the Jimny, because then you can put more speed into it, and when you put more speed into it, you're going to get more acceleration as return. That's why every car is not as streamlined, like we're not hitting the 0.0 of coefficient streamline, because some cars don't need that streamlined design, so yeah, there is like a somewhat case you should, but there's a somewhat case you really shouldn't. But yeah, World Touring Car 600 you could technically probably do, considering if the Scirocco could handle that pretty well. Because yeah, I'll just say this, whatever the Scirocco did, the Jimny could probably do it even better. So I'm gonna have to do some testing if it could do that World Touring. I get the feeling it's most likely probably maybe a yes in some regards. So that's why I'm kind of showing those ones. You can also do the Turbo Challenge too, and it can probably destroy some cars with that. Yes. Yeah, you can also do the Asia Oceania Championship. Just be careful about Fuji Speedway, because I'll just say this: any speed tracks might be dangerous to this, so just a tad. But on to the race segment here, which basically I just did a custom race of Magello, or I think it's called Magello or something like that for a racetrack. Because I do like this racetrack. I don't care for the full course though, but they have a portion here that I really do like, which I believe is the West course segment. It could be the West or it could be the East for the most part. But this segment I like the most because it has that one bank turn I love out of this when it comes to this track. Because this track is pretty good. I just don't care for the full segment of it. But oh, it's Maggiore. Maggiore. Okay, that's what it's called. Yeah, I saw the glimpse of that name there. It's like, that's Maggiore. So hopefully I'm saying that right at the end of it too. But yeah, basically was racing against a bunch of NSX AE86s, which is funny. I have both the drift ones. I have the Torino Sogino one, which is somewhat a drift tune one, and then you have the drift tune one. And they have the Goretti Fuga Z, which you can see the difference between the stats between the AE86 Sogino to the drift one. And to see how much of a fuel difference there is there too, which is very interesting in regards. And then we had the 500 Mondial Pininfarina. I figured this car would be up a little higher because this is a race car. That is an old race car, which I do hope they add more old race cars. Like old race cars are some old fun cars like the Mini Marcos GT and such. But yeah, speaking of Suzuki, there's a bunch of Suzuki cars to add in the future too. Like, I can think of the obvious one is the Suzuki AutoWorks. I hope they add that one for sure. There's probably a Suzuki sedan they could probably add too. Yeah, there is a sedan that they made over here at United States, but basically wasn't good enough to keep the sales high for Suzuki to be over here at United States, so they backed out of the United States since then. But because of the up price of K cars in the future, it makes me wonder if Suzuki gonna come back, because now they can just keep K cars over here and not have a huge problem, I assume. especially under the lines of Toyota at this point, there's a possibility. There's a very high possibility that Jimny can come over here in the United States. But yeah, here's the best part about the Jimny. It's not over here. It's over at Europe, at best. Because at least the one good thing about UK, at least they can have Jimnys. We can't have Jimnys over here because of our stupid cafe tax and how much our beloved government wants to upcharge these kind of small cars at the end of the day. Because they are dangerous, as you can see. Okay, then explain the bike then for me. Because a bike is not only dangerous, but severely dangerous compared to a Jimny. Also, on that matter. A Jimny at least will have some protection. A bike will not have much protection. A bike, matter of fact, you need to wear kneecaps and everything else just to keep yourself afloat in case you so happen to skid yourself. So yeah, it's really BS as the word stands when it comes back. And yeah, there goes the NSX. The NSX going in. Its high power is very good, but it does have a bit of a fuel cost compared to the other lights here that we see here, from the 86 to the... This one shocks me the most, is the Goretti Fuga Z, which, by the way, in case you're wondering what's in that, it's a RB26, but without the turbo though. So it's an NA RB26. But I'm not gonna lie, that's a cool setup, and it reminds me of another car in the future that hopefully we get as well. As speaking of professional tuners, is Atomic Kiara. I hope we said that right. It's the Atomic Kiara or Atomic Kira. It's one of the two. Or, no, it won't be Kira. Well, it could be Kira. I don't know. But basically, the red turtle. They need to add the red turtle. Specifically, the Atomic Kiara R and the Atomic Kiara M30. Which M30? Specifically the Skyline R31. Because yeah, that's to say there's two M30s. There was the Mercedes prototype, or was made, I'm not really sure to say on that one. And then when they stuck to their guns, they stuck with the Skyline, which they just straight up just called the M30 at the end of it. As well. Which is a fun case, but to say about the M30 though, it was also another vehicle that has no turbo, basically. Because yeah, he wanted to do the car without turbo, because it's technically good to have a car without turbo, I will say. By longevity means, having no turbo is a good thing. And having the NA to be more reliant on torque itself is a good thing. Because that's basically just better reliability, especially with the high torque NA motor. High torque NA motor was really good. The problem is the fundamentals to do that. But yeah, I tried to drift around the bank turn. It kind of worked. But yeah, this is basically overall what I think about the Suzuki Jimny Swift at the end of the day. It's a very fun little fast car. It'll probably be fastest of the K racers I'm gonna be showing here, no doubt. So the other case I could think of is the other Jimny, because just to say, you probably have seen it. There is another Jimny. There's the Sierra, which is the Sierra is the pedestrian version of the Jimny, because it has a basically stronger motor, and I love the sound of that motor. In comparison to this one's not bad, but when you hear the Sierra one just sounds freaking warm, man. For a little K body machine with a pedestrian model, it's insanely good. And the Suzuki Jimny is easily gonna be like one of my favorite off-roads for a good while. So here comes basically the next car for the next time we do the Cup Tryouts, which is the Mustang Grade 4. So I'll see you guys all next time. You guys take care and ciao. I hope you like the new setting I did for the racing segment, and tell them people, take care.